Hello, welcome to Sportsbet TV with me, Paul Alster. I'm back once again and looking ahead now to Saturday the 28th of October. And I hope very much you're going to stick with me during the duration of this video to hear about the two selections I have for you. And I'm quite hopeful that we're going to have a pretty good weekend. If you join me for the first time, this service is all about trying to find runners that are going to run well and give us a proper run for our money at decent each way odds. So that's what it's all about. I've shown profits every season, every calendar year since we started way back in the Corona days of early 2020. Thankfully, they're long gone. Well, there was just the one selection last weekend. That was Terms of Endearment. We didn't really get into the action on what was really bad ground on Champions Day, although the ground wasn't the factor. She just wasn't good enough as it turned out. But as I say, I have two selections for you this weekend. Now, we're showing a fair profit at Sportsbet once again this month, as we have for in September, August and July. But we're really flying out in front, which is my subscription service. And so far this month, we're 485 quid up to the recommended stake. So you really should have a think about joining us, because things are going very well there, with tips provided, of course, at the weekend meetings and also the festival meetings, and a few through the week as well, when I fancy one or two at the more minor meetings. So take a look at the link in the description box just below this screen. It's only £25 a month. There's no lock-in fee, so you can choose to come and go when you wish. And as I say, we are doing very well indeed, and it would be a shame if you are not part of that success, especially having followed me, as I know so many of you have for so long here at Sportsbet. Well, let's take you to the first choice on Saturday. I'm hoping the second choice is going to run. I'll come to that in a minute. The first choice, though, Cheltenham 225, the 3 mile 1 furlong handicap chase. It's good to soft ground, good in places, and probably going to be more good than good to soft, judging by the weather forecast. 14 runners, including last year's winner, Lord Accord, for Neil Mulholland. He looks to have been prepared to make a very bold attempt to defend this crown, and he should be all the better for what was a very good return run when a 4th place at Warwick over hurdles recently. And he's only £1 higher than last year's victory. He's got similar underfoot conditions. No surprise at all to see him at the head of the market at the time of this recording at around 6 to 1, but it is a very open race. Henry de Bromhead's Amirite showed really smart form in novice chases last season. He was sent off favourite actually for the Irish National at Fairyhouse in April, but he ran no sort of race, eventually pulling up. That might have been conceivably because of just a long season, just feeling the effects. Or he may have been overwhelmed by the big field on Handicap Bow. It's a different story, these rough and tumble handicaps, to the novice races. I think he still rates, though, a good prospect for this season. He's respected, especially if there's any serious money for him. Now, there are plenty in the race with a chance, and they include the likes of Nicky Henderson's recent Ludlow winner, Quick Draw, the hat-trick-seeking Twig for Ben Pauling, a nice horse, really likeable chaser. The talented top-weight Kinando Cueto travels down from my part of the world, Leeds, for Samantha England, who's a very good jumps trainer. And the Wolf for Ollie Murphy, second in this race last year behind Lord Accord, now £4 better off. He's got a chance, as too has Nigel Twiston-Davis's Under Supervision, who was last seen pulling up in the Scottish National at Ayr in April, but had previously been a very good runner-up in the valuable Grimthorpe Chase at Doncaster. But having mentioned all of those, I'm coming to my selection. And this is a horse called Waka Clan. This is another one trained by Henry de Bromhead, and Dara O'Keefe is going to be on board. Now, this horse is an improving 7-year-old, stepping up in class, but I think he shouldn't be taken lightly. Represents, of course, a top stable with a wonderful record at Cheltenham. And it comes into this race on the back of a very gutsy effort over 2 miles 5 furlongs at Tremor last time out. Now, that 2 miles 5 looked an absolute bare minimum, because as they raced to the last, 3 or 4 horses came through to challenge him, looked as if he was going to be swamped, but he actually picked up and stayed on to go away again at the finish. This is a horse who needs 3 miles, I think, and he's got the extra half a mile here to go at, and the decent ground which suits. And I think he's really going to be to his liking off a mark just £5 higher. He looks to me to be at the right end of the weight, and although he's got more to do, I think he's got more to give. And so 16 to 1 each way for 5 places. Last time I looked with Paddy Power, that was the best offer. That looks a good bet, I think, for Wacker Clan across at Cheltenham on Saturday in the 225. And then my second selection, well, I'm hoping that racing is going to go ahead at Doncaster on Saturday. And it looks like they're probably going to inspect in the morning, I suppose. The going is heavy. In fact, it's probably bottomless. They abandoned racing on Friday to try and save the ground for the Group 1 juvenile race on Saturday, amongst others. But of course, a lot of horses are going to sink without trace in this mud. But the 330 race is interesting. The Doncaster 330, a 5-furlong handicap, heavy ground, 11 runners. And there are quite a few sprinters here who actually do handle the ground well. But often at this time of the year on what is desperate ground, you don't want to be getting involved in these kind of races because there are a few horses that handle it, lots of horses that have had enough for the season and would rather be putting their hooves up in the stables and chilling out until the spring. But what we do know in this particular race is that Vintage Clarets, trained by Richard Fahey, and Glorious Angel for Grant Tuer both handle the conditions well, and there was probably that much when they ran across at Catterick last week in the best race of the year at Catterick, a top class sprint handicap anyway, class 2 sprint handicap at Catterick last week. There was nothing to separate them on the revised terms. They should almost dead heat. Now Count d'Orsay and Manila Scouse are both trained by Tim Easterby for his long-standing owner Ambrose Turnbull, and they too handle conditions. Indeed, old Count d'Orsay was arguably a touch unlucky when a very close third in that Catterick race last week, won by Vintage Clarets. He could be the pick of Tim Easterby's pair. And then you've got Jack Shannon's runner, Desperate Hero. He's been put up £5 for a recent Nottingham win, and that was again in heavy ground, so unusually for a sprint to the back end in background, you've got quite a lot of horses who act on it. So Desperate Hero is another contender. But I'm prepared to nail my colours to the mast here of Aberama Gold. He's trained by David O'Mara and the Mount of Danny Tadhope, top trainer and jockey combination. I think he might just have one more good win in him this season, having proved an absolute revelation since he joined O'Mara earlier this summer from the now retired Keith Dalgleish. Now, he ran very well, but out of the money on his stable debut for O'Mara at Ayr in July, and then he won a really good York 6-furlong sprint in fine style. But that was just the horse's doovers, as my grandpa used to say, because he hit the jackpot after that, ploughed through the mud over the 6 furlongs at Glorious Goodwood to win the Stewards' Cup. It was an absolutely superb effort, off a mark of 95. And it might have been that run took a bit out of him, or more out of him than we thought. And he ran too free when he went for the Ayr Gold Cup. But when you look at it, he actually was only beaten just over 3 lengths. He was unusually free that day. But he again ran with credit when third in his group last time out at York in the Coral Sprint Trophy, another £100,000 race. He finished 9th overall, so on the bare figure it looks disappointing, but he was third in his group, and his group had no chance. They were drawn on the wrong side, as it proved. So as far as I'm concerned, he's still holding his form, and having shown so much pace in recent starts, I think the drop back to 5 furlongs on this heavy ground on which he won the Stewards' Cup, not only unbelievably, I think he's got a massive chance. So Aberama Gold is the choice. There was early 10 to 1, but they've snaffled that. And so he's now 8 to 1 each way generally. And I think he's going to give us a proper run for our money, Aberama Gold, across at Doncaster. And that is in the 3:30, assuming, of course, the meeting goes ahead. Remember, if you want more tips to go out this weekend and going forward, as you know, we're looking at Cheltenham and all these fabulous meetings coming through over the next few weeks and months, over jumps and so on, check out the link just below this screen and think about joining me at Out in Front. As I say, we are 485 quid up already this month. We're absolutely flying. And we're also showing a nice profit as well here at Sportsbet with these free selections. Whatever you decide to do, come back and join me next week, because I'll be back with more. But for now, from me, Paul Alster, enjoy your weekend wherever you are. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.